All right. Hello, everyone. How's it going? And welcome back to Diary of an Olympic Triathlete, that being the diary of someone who is doing an Olympic distance triathlon, not an Olympian. I wish I was an Olympian. I thought I was pointing at the camera, but the camera's here. I'm using my webcam. I was like, I don't know why I was trying to do this. It did not work. I ended up pointing to the side. That's what I wanted to do. Anyway, also that's Jesus. I don't know. Why was I trying to do that? Also, that joke that I was making about the Olympic triathlon thing was bad. I'm gonna stop doing it. But anyway, this video started so terribly. I'm like, you know what? We're just gonna keep going. Let me get some water first, and then. All right. Let's start talking. So this is week 2 and 3 of Diary of an Olympic Triathlete. There will be like 15 or 16 weeks of this total. I'm not sure how many. I haven't done all the math, but more or less. So we're starting to make a little headway into the training program. I am now in Spain. So, because yeah, there's been that change. I was in the U.S. when I started my training. I did 2 weeks there, the first 2 weeks, and then I came over here to Spain, and now I've completed week 3 of the training plan here in Spain, and also it's just been a general adjustment. But yeah, so that's how things are going right now. I got here. Let's see. Today is. I'm trying to remember. Is today Friday or Saturday? Today's Saturday. Today's Saturday. I arrived here on Monday, and so the first adjustment of this whole thing has just been like I have been very jet lagged. That's something that's like I've come to Spain a lot of times before. I mean, I lived here for a while, so this is my second stint living in the country. And I thought that I had jet lag more or less conquered, or that like it wasn't really something that would affect me, but it turns out it still does. So that's really cool. Because no, what happened was I got here on the first night, or I got here in the morning. I hadn't slept on the plane. I basically made a conscious decision. I was like, I'm not going to sleep really on the plane. I'm not going to try to do that. I'm just going to get to Spain, and then I'm going to stay awake, the whole time. And then at night, on the first night, I'll go to bed, which is what I did. So at about 10 p.m. on Monday, when I arrived here, I went to bed thinking, okay, we'll be fine. So that's what I tried to do, but I had very interrupted sleep the entire night. I got up very early, I think maybe about 6 or 7 a.m. And I hadn't really slept great. And then trying to remember if it was on that second day or how things went exactly. Basically, what happened was I started having very interrupted sleep, where like I would just be like, throughout the day doing things. I would be fine. I would be, going about whatever, organizing stuff. And then I just conk out at about 5 to 7 p.m. and then just take like a 6 hour nap involuntarily. And so then, of course, I would wake up at about 11 or 12 p.m. or, 11 p.m., 12 a.m. So about 11 or midnight. And then I would have slept 6 hours. So then it was like, all right, what do I do now? Because I couldn't go back to sleep. I already slept pretty close to a full night. But then, so then I'd kind of like take a break. I'd go get something to eat, and then I would wake up later, or go to bed later. I'd go to bed maybe at like 5 a.m. and then sleep the rest of the night, and then wake up at maybe 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., which is like more normal time to wake up for me. And basically I was having very interrupted sleep. So that was affecting things a bit. I'm still slowly getting over that. Like this morning was the first time I had like a mostly full night of sleep. And I woke up at 5 a.m. because I ended up involuntarily falling asleep, I think at about 7 p.m. last night. And so I woke up again at midnight, and then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going back to bed. So I went back to bed at midnight, and I stayed asleep until 5 a.m. So I slept 10 hours. So good night's sleep. I feel rested. But yeah, that's been affecting all aspects of life, to be honest, training included. But that's been like the least important kind of impact of everything. But yeah, sleep also impacts your training. Obviously, it's something that if you don't sleep well, it's hard to have good quality training, and it's hard for the training to, take an effect in the body. But yeah, so that's been that, and then. I've just working along with my training. I've been doing my 5 days a week. I remember. So the first week, this is like my week 3 diary, but really the week 1 diary I did before week 1 started. So really I have to cover week 1, week 2, and week 3 in one video. So I'm gonna be quick with that. Basically, I tried a couple of double training days because what I'd heard is you need to train more for an Olympic triathlon because it's a longer distance than, a sprint or, the previous triathlons that I'd done. So I have 7 sessions a week that I do now, but I only want to train 5 days a week because I like having at least 2 days off. And every plan has at least 1 day off, but I was like, I need 2. Like I want to limit it to 7 or to 5 training days a week because I really just can't handle more. Like for me, otherwise, it just feels like I'm constantly doing, this training. And I just like for my mental health and energy and like staying motivated with this, I need it to be something that I can maintain consistently, even with those weeks when I'm not feeling good. And I think the first evidence of that is that this first week in Spain has not been a week where I felt good. So the fact that I managed to maintain everything, despite my sleep being a complete mess and like all these other things raging around me, is a really good sign that the training plan is somewhat well designed. But anyway, so the first week with those double days, I'd never done double days of training before, and the first one took so much out of me. Like the first training day I did was a technical swim in the morning, and then a run in the afternoon or at night. And that run was my intense run. Like that intense run, by the way, I do 2 runs a week. I do 1 long run and 1 intense run. The long run's fine. The long run, because it's like a nice relaxed pace, or like sometimes a bit of a tempo pace. I'm thinking of incorporating tempo pace runs later on, but like right now it's just like a light pace, just covering 4 or 5 miles. What takes it out of me is the other run, the short run, because it's an intense one. I'm doing mile repeats at my 5K pace. Basically, my goal with the run, because running is my strongest discipline. I've done running races on their own. So like with triathlon, like triathlon is basically adding things to running, but running is kind of like my base at the moment. Like my background is running. So given that I come from a running background, I have like higher motivations for my finishing time with the run than I do with the other 2 disciplines. And in the Olympic triathlon, we're doing a 10K. And so when I've trained for 5Ks in the past, what I did was I would run mile repeats of 3 miles at my 5K pace. And then during the race, I would just try to maintain that pace. And that more or less worked. So my thought was that for the 10K part of the Olympic triathlon, I'm going to have one part, my long runs to work on my distance and just get my base fitness up. But then my other one run a week, will be a intense interval session, which will be running at my 5K pace, trying to just work up the amount of repeats I do. So I'm starting at 3 right now, and I'm working up each month. I'm adding a mile to it because you're supposed to do 10% of like added intensity a week. So more or less adding a mile every 2 to 3 weeks means that I'm slowly increasing intensity up to the point where, so I'm running 3 right now. I'll get up to 4 and then 5 and then 6. So the goal is by the time race day comes around, I will be doing 6 miles in these sessions at my 10K pace, at my 5K pace. So my 5K pace is an 8-minute mile. That way, in the 10K part of the triathlon, I can run at about an 8:30-minute mile. And that will be manageable because I'm doing it, like I'll have rest, in my training sessions when I'm doing them. So if you take out those rests, but then you slow things down a little bit, then I should be okay. Then I should be able to run a 10K at about 8.5 to 9-minute mile pace. I'm not putting a ton of super specific numbers on my 10K because I don't want to I'm just trying to in general not put too many numbers on things. But I do have like general goals where I'm like, it would be nice if I could hit this pace more or less. So 8.5 to 9-minute mile for me in the 10K is going to be good. Like that's what I'm looking for. I think I'm going to err on the side of slower. So like during the race, I'm going to run slower than I originally or than I think I can, and then try to, negative split. So maybe start at like 8:45 and then work it down to 8:30 as I'm getting to the end. And even maybe in the last mile, if I feel good, go 8-minute mile. But basically with this training is to go way more intense than I need to. So that way during the race, I can run my pace at a lower heart rate and just overall feel better about it. So that's the run part. I haven't gotten to run though recently because last week, I did my last runs and then I came over to Spain. And as I was coming over to Spain, I had 4 days where I didn't work out because the day of my flight, the day I got here, because, the flights leave the US at night and get here in the morning. And then I gave myself 2 more days as just like getting everything set up, buying things from the grocery store, because I'm currently living alone in my apartment here in Valencia. I'm in Valencia, by the way, in Spain. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but yeah. So getting everything set up here, um, and so as a result, I really didn't have, I didn't want to get right into training, so I left a little bit of time. And one of the days I skipped was the day of that intense interval session. So anyway, I've had a little bit less run this week. Like this specific week, I've only done a long swim and a long bike, which being in Europe, the advantage is I now have a meter pool. So that's good. I was able, because I've been doing 1,500-yard sessions, because that's what I already could swim, as I've been doing, like for my long aerobic swims, I was doing 3 by 500, so 1,500 yards. Now that I'm in a meter pool, I can do 3 by 500 meters, which is a lot closer. That's actually the distance of the triathlon. And then of course I'm working that up over the weeks. So I did that. I did a bike as well yesterday. And then this morning, since I woke up so early, I did just like a really light jog because I hadn't run in like a week. So I was like, all right, let me just get a light jog. I went to see Valencia. There's a garden here called El Jardín del Turia, which is super nice. Like I've walked around there a couple times before when I visited the city, and it is really beautiful. And they also, at the end of the garden, there are these like major, like there's one art museum and one science museum, and also the aquarium there. And they're all like super cool architecturally speaking. So I went there, I took a bunch of photos, and that was a really fun, just like morning run. I also felt like just such a productive person, because I was one of those people that like, okay, I get up at 6 a.m. and I go on a run now. Like I'm one of those people. I don't know how long that will last, because my regular wake up time is like 11 a.m. But we'll see. We'll see how that whole thing goes. But yeah, so that's been the training. Overall, things have been going better. Now the double training days, there's actually a point where like after the first double training day, which absolutely destroyed me, I was like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do so many of these. Or just like maybe I should, like I was thinking of cutting down a swim, but then I just like took a minute to think about it, and I was like, I think there can be a way that I can manage this. Especially it's all mental, because also it was like once that double day came, all of a sudden I just started thinking about my training, like, oh my God, there's so many days, and like every day, even if I don't train today, I have to train tomorrow, and it's like this whole thing. But then I just started thinking about it more, and I was like, really, it's not all that. Like it's, obviously it's a good number of sessions, but many of them aren't that intense. And if they're intense, they're not long. So there's like a balance either way, like the longest session I have this week, is my bike, with my bike that I did yesterday, which was an hour and a half, which to be honest, is that long? Yes. But at the same time, it's not intense. Like at no point in that session was I like, oh my God, I'm dying. I was chilling. I could check my phone. I could, check the news, like whatever, there's so many things I could do. So there's not too much of a worry about that. But anyway, so yeah, training's been going good, and I'm keeping the double days because I'm just like, it's all mental. It's all just like organize yourself, get things in a good schedule. The other thing is I do have to adjust things now that I'm here in Valencia, which I might make a video about this. Like I talked about it in the last diary, and I might do it in a future one, just like show y'all kind of what my training week looks like. But one thing I want to do is turn the triathlon into more of a social thing, is in go to meet people. So I found a running club here in Valencia that meets on Mondays, and I'm thinking about going, well, they meet on a bunch of days of the week actually. So I'm thinking of going to one of their meetings throughout the week to run with them. Well, because they do both like road running sessions and track sessions. So I've thought of at least doing the road session with them, because that would be my long run for the week. And then I might even try their track sessions. It would depend. I might try one track session with them and just see what their whole vibe is like there. Obviously, because track sessions are a bit more particular to, each individual. So if their track sessions are like, whatever, they're doing 400 repeats, obviously for my case, because I'm doing a longer run, that's not as useful. And I kind of already have like my structure of what I'd like to do. So I might do the track sessions on my own, but at least run with them once a week. That way I can meet people. I've also found a cycling club that looks good, so I'm thinking I might do rides with them. Although the one thing is that cycling clubs ride really long distances. Like I think I was checking one, and their average rides were like 80 kilometers or something, which is insane. Like it's genuinely like that's your whole morning and part of your afternoon. That's just riding bikes with this group of people, which obviously if you have the fitness for that is great. And I mean, I feel like maybe I could, like, because the bike that I did yesterday, I was about 50 kilometers, and that took me, hour and a half, a little bit longer. Um, and like that for me didn't feel like my limit. Like I definitely could have done an extra 10 or 20 gun to my head type of situation. So I feel like I could bike with a biking club if I had to, or if I wanted to. I mean, I do want to, because that way I can meet people. But yeah, so I'm thinking of that, but just they are quite long rides. I'm thinking though maybe later on in my schedule when my rides are supposed to be that long, because right now I'm at an hour and a half. Um, but my rides do get up to about 2.5 hour long ones. In that case, I could see riding with a cycling club and riding for, 2.5 hours and doing those 80 kilometers or doing those 100 kilometers, whatever they do. Because the idea is you get over distance to the point where you're so comfortable riding on the bike that way, once you get to the race and you have to ride 40 kilometers, it feels super easy. Is the idea, at least the distance part of it. Obviously, then of course you can, in that case, ratchet up the intensity, which is I'm also doing interval bike sessions every week, so I'm working on those. And then with the swim, I'm trying to figure out the swim, because really, like, I'm not a super proficient swimmer, so I don't want to swim very intensely in the race. My goal would be do 2 minutes per 100 and make it so that feels comfortable and fluid and easy. Like that's kind of my goal. So I'm doing, the long aerobic swims, and then I found a swim instructor who seems really good, and he's an open water swim instructor. Because that's the biggest concern with the swim is I don't know how to swim in open water yet. Like obviously there's a lot of transfer from the pool, but there are certain tactical things that you need to do a little differently when you swim in the water and also when you swim with other people that I don't know how to do. So I found an instructor that I'm going to do a few pool sessions with him, and then my goal is move over as well to doing sessions in the ocean, because here in Valencia we have an ocean, a beautiful ocean. So taking advantage of the fact that the ocean's right here to train. Because also legitimately, I picked Valencia in part because they have the ocean here and they have all the things I was going to need to train for my triathlon. So anyway, yeah, looking for or learning some of those tactics, doing a couple of sessions in the ocean. Anyway, but things are progressing nicely. I'm getting settled in here in the city of Valencia, figuring everything out. Also, I'm much more hairy than I was, I think, in the previous diary. Realizing I don't remember if I'd shaved or not in the last one, but I definitely need to shave now. Like it's the hair situation's getting a little, the beard. Well, it's not even a beard. It's like, see, my problem is I can't grow a beard. So, or not like can't, but I guess I've never tested it. But like if I leave it like this, if I don't shave for like 2 weeks, it just looks like scraggly and hairy. It doesn't seem like it'll become a beard. It just like looks like I don't manage this. So then I end up shaving it off. So honestly, I don't like, it would be cool to have a beard at least once, but I don't know. That we're gonna see how that whole situation goes. But anyway, yeah, so that's how we are now. The basic summary of this, the State of the Union. I don't know why. State of the Union of my triathlon training. We're in a good condition. We're in a good place. I'm enjoying the process of just like going every morning to the gym, knocking out a training session. I'm starting to feel like Michael Phelps in the pool. Like I feel legit proficient. Looking back on me as well, I remember like, back in January, I did my first triathlon, and we had to swim 500 meters in the pool, and I just about died in the process. Like that was really bad. I barely made it to the end of the swim leg, and and that was after a month of training where at the beginning of that month, I almost died swimming 100 meters. So like even that was way better than what had been like a month before. But I think now I'm like 500 is one of 3 sets I do in my training, and I definitely could do 5 sets of 500 if I wanted to. Like I'm trying to slowly build things up, but I'm like, the fact that now I can swim like so much more distance wise, and I just have like a better technique and a better feel of the water is insane. Like that there's been that much of a difference in so little time. And so I just keep reminding myself partially of the progress, especially in the water, but also like on the bike, just like a general feeling of like comfort, and like I can, I just like feel solid going longer distances, and then running as well. Just like the fact that I enjoy running as well is a big thing. Like I've once I've learned that like long runs are supposed to be slow and enjoyable, completely changed my perception of running. Like just complete like because like old me would never have been like, oh, it's 7 in the morning, let me go for a run real quick. Because I thought of running as that thing that okay, you do it for 20 minutes and then you just start dying. Like that's what I thought running was. And genuinely I've learned to like actually enjoy it, like enjoy the process. And so it's something that like I have this triathlon that's in July, so it's still a long way off. Like it's still a whole 3 months that we have, from now until I do this race. But at the same time, I'm already thinking beyond it in a way of like, what could I do after? That's the one thing that I'm trying to, I'd say mentally, that's almost the hardest part of this is the getting ahead of myself part, which I tend to do this anytime I have an interest in something. Um, so on the one hand, it's good because like I genuinely like triathlons. Like it's not just a thing that I do because it's good for me and I can like tolerate it. Like I actually like triathlon. I spend a lot of time that I'm not doing triathlons thinking about triathlons. Um, and that part's a good thing, that I actually like it. But then I get ahead of myself. Like I start thinking way down the line because already I've started like making this plan that I know I can't get my mind too set on it because so many things can happen. And so that's almost like the mental battle with myself is like, it's not like the fear or anything. Cause like, I'm not afraid of this race. It's almost like minimizing the race I'm doing right now. Cause I'm already focused on the goal after the goal that I currently have, cause like I've had this goal of doing the triathlon in Geneva for like a couple of months. Like it's been just kind of like rattling around in the old coconut for a couple of months. And then it's, I've been signed up for the race for a couple of weeks, about a month now. So it's already like a very established, like, okay, this triathlon is going to happen. So my brain's moving forward to like, okay, what happens after? And almost once it gets excited about those future things after the triathlon, this one that I'm doing doesn't even seem that important. So that's like the one thing I'm reminding myself is like, you're training because this is the important one right now. Like this is the standard Olympic distance triathlon, the one that's like, once you do this, you can say, I've done a big boy full distance triathlon. That's what's important at the moment. So it's reminding myself that this triathlon is important and this triathlon is what you're working on preparing for. And really, this is where the buck stops. Like you can kind of have some phantom ideas that, like go beyond it, but like you just have to go a step at a time because otherwise, you get lost in the shuffle of trying to plan too much. So that's been the mental battle almost. Like not the mental battle, like, can I do this? Because I know I can do this. Like I've run 10K before. I can already swim 1500 in the pool. I'm doing them as reps right now to keep it manageable. And I'm like, within a couple of weeks, I'm just going to do a continuous 1500 test to just like see where I'm at. And then I'll start, working up my mileage. But that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I know I can do this. And like the bike, the 40 kilometers, I just did 50 in training. Obviously the course I'm going to be on is more hilly, but like, I know I can do all these things that they're asking me to do in the race. So at this point, it's just that's almost one thing that makes it hard though, because on the other side, when it's not like a can I do it challenge, then it's like, well, then what am I still training for? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I can already swim 1500 meters. I can already, I can already bike this distance. I can already run this distance. And the question is, okay, then what's all the, deal with training. So I also have to remind myself that, because the one thing is you also lose perspective, because like I'm reading a lot about Ironmans and half Ironmans and half marathons and all this stuff. And then I have to remind myself that, hey, yo, this race is still long as hell. I almost already have assimilated these ideas that I can do these things, but I'm like, if I tried right now to swim 1500 meters in 30 minutes, I could not do it. So you still have a lot of work, cut out for you. If you tried to run a 10K at a decent pace, you would have a really hard time doing that. If you tried to bike at a decent pace with the hills and with everything, like you'd have a hard time doing that too. So it's just keeping everything in perspective, like that. There's still a lot of work to do. Just because like I'm thinking about longer races doesn't mean that this race right now is not important, or that this race right now is easy. That's the other thing. So anyway, there's just been like a lot of like that mental stuff, like staying focused, not losing kind of the perspective and the importance of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, it is true that like I've thought of, down the road, maybe over the summer, I want to try a mile time trial, like try to do a 6-minute mile. I think I can maybe do a 7-minute mile right now. I run my 5Ks at an 8 minute mile. So I'm like, that's something, maybe even trying a half marathon at the end of the year. There's one in Malaga that's in December. So I thought of like, okay, that could be something down the road as well. And then even looking at like a half Ironman after I do this Olympic triathlon. There's a lot of like thoughts. Also, I have like an idea of doing a challenge I've seen the 100 by 100 challenge, which is you swim 10 kilometers, but as 100-meter reps, and you do that in the pool. And that seems like a really cool challenge. So, but again, it's like those are really exciting, but they're also exciting because they're new things. So, and they're distracting me from what's the old thing, which is this current challenge that I'm working on. So it's now you guys understand a bit as well my mental process. Like there's a lot of thoughts and conflicting things that go around there. But yeah, so basically that's the hard part is the mental side of things. They're reminding myself that, okay, this training you're doing is necessary. This training that you're doing is good for you. It's fun. You like doing it. Hopefully I'm going to be able to meet people and because, I'll have the instructor and I'll have the different clubs. And just in general, enjoying the process. That's the other thing is making this about the process, not just the results. Because, race day is going to be one day. And hopefully it's going to be a fun day. It's going to be, an experience in a full distance outdoor triathlon, like a real big boy event where they got the blue carpet at the end and then you bust through the tape. I mean, I won't be the one busting through the tape because I will be very far from first place. But, busting through there and being like, I did a good job. I trained well. But obviously that's only one day, that whole event. Like what this is months of preparation that eventually will lead to that final result. But it's all part of a process. That's the thing. It's like just remembering that it's a process. It's not just one result. And being like, okay, if I had to do the race today, could I do it? Sure, but I'd be bullshitting a lot of it. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But that's all. I'm going to leave things here because otherwise I will keep on rambling. I already have rambled a lot, but I will keep on doing it. So anyway, thank you all for withstanding my rambles. And then next week, let's see if I'm going to try to just keep us on the schedule where every Saturday I will make one of these diaries so that we just keep things going from here on out. So next week will be week 4. And on Saturday, I have a 5K that I'm going to be doing here in Valencia that I'm quite excited for. That's my first of 3 races that I have of 3 like interim races that I'm doing that race. And then about a month later, I'm doing a sprint triathlon down in Alicante. And then about a month later, I'll be doing a 10K in a to-be-determined location. I still have to figure that part out. But yeah, so I have a couple of different events that I'll be doing. So that's just things as they are right now. And I guess I'll let y'all know next week how the 5K goes. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping I can get a PB. My current PB is 24:14, which I did during a sprint triathlon. However, it was on a treadmill, so a little asterisk. On the road, my 5K PB is like 25:48, but I did that back at like on Christmas Eve, and that's back when I was in not as good of shape as I am right now. I hadn't really trained properly for that 5K. So I'm sure that if I have a good race day, I can 100% beat that. So we're just going to have to see if I can set an overall PB. My goal would be to go under 24 minutes, but we will see. Keep our fingers crossed. I'll let y'all know. But that's all. So interim race number 1 coming up next week, the 5K here in Valencia. And other than that, I'll keep y'all posted. Training continues, and we're still going strong. All right, see y'all later.